What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of askTBG. Today I have my good friend Jason with me. He's a firefighter and amongst many other things, and a dad. So I brought him in. I've got some questions of my own for him and stuff that I think would be super valuable to you guys. So let's get into it.
Hey kid, do I have your attention? I know the way you've been living. Life's so reckless, tragedy endless. Welcome to the family. You can't win this fight.
All right, Jason, do you want to tell these guys, introduce yourself, let them know a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and a little bit of your background?
All right, I'm Jason Brahm. I'm a lieutenant with fire department here in coastal South Carolina. I've been in the fire service 11 years. I'm a National Registry EMT basic as well. And I'm a dad of 2 boys. I have a background in exercise science as well as nutritional coaching. And I do a lot of work with the fire service in general with helping with nutrition and physical fitness. And that's kind of the side of my main career as a firefighter.
And he does that as, like he said, a little alongside of his main career. Let them know where they can find you to follow you doing that stuff. Because
you can find me at firstdofit.com as well as firstdofit on Instagram and Twitter as well as Facebook.
Cool, and I'll link that stuff up so you guys can follow Jason down that journey of health and nutrition, really.
Yeah, and it's geared kind of, in a sense, I cover a lot geared towards the fire service, but I also do work with a lot of clients that are not in the fire service. So if you are looking for any kind of guidance or help or tips or whatnot, you can reach me through one of those platforms, and I work with people, everyday people from businessmen to stay-at-home moms, etc.
Right, cool. Awesome. All right, so make sure you go follow him and say thanks for doing this with us. The first topic I want to cover is kids in pools, drowning, bathtubs, things like that, because that is personally my biggest fear. And I think, and I know that you probably have numbers on this because you're into that stuff, but statistically it's like a majority of children that die drowned. No?
Yes, other than from birth defects is the only other thing under the age, I want to say, of 4. I actually did do some research on this, just so when we talk about from 2005 to 2014, there was an average of 3,500 fatal unintentional drownings, okay? And of those...
And that's per year?
Yes. And then you've got, in that statistic right there, they said that about 10 deaths per day, an additional 332 people died each year from drowning and boat-related. That first statistic was in residential and commercial pools.
Got it.
Okay? So we're not talking about bathtubs or any of that. We're just talking about your home backyard pool or your resort pool, etc.
Right.
And then you also have there that the the kids, they said that about 1 in 5 people who die from drowning are children 14 and younger.
14?
14 and younger, 1 out of 5.
Did you guys hear that? 1 out of 5 kids under the age of 14 drown.
Yes. And as a first responder, when we get a call that is reference to a drowning, that is probably one of the worst calls that you can be dispatched out to provide
service to.
Yeah. You have...
It's very difficult.
Very difficult one, and coming from being a parent that everyone can relate to, that is probably, as a parent, one of the worst nightmares that you could ever have.
I can't imagine, and which is why I wanted to talk about it, to talk about some of the realistic numbers like that, because I knew it was very high. I knew it was like overwhelming, the amount of children that die from drowning. So I am like on pins and needles every time my kids go to a pool, or even when they were very young, were in the bathtub, and I was up Brandy's back about like, don't put too much water in there, like just a little bit. They don't need any more. We'll clean it. Like they'll be fine. She's like, what's the? I'm like, no, they're gonna drown. We can't do this. Like, get them out of there. Like I made Brandy give them the bath because I stressed out so much about them in the water. Like, because having one in there is one thing, but then I had two, and they're young and they're taking baths together and they're playing, and somebody's slipping and falling and all. I'm like, it freaked me out. I couldn't do it. It was super stressful. So I was like, what better topic to talk to you about than that for being one? So do you have, as a professional, are there things that, aside from, obviously, you're almost like in helicopter parent mode around water and pools, but trying not to be that way, is there anything that they should be doing or paying attention to, or to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different steps that you can take, really. But first and foremost, I'll cover the residential pool area, or let's say your neighborhood pool. Mm-hmm. Depending on the age, obviously, if we're talking a toddler age where they're mobile, that's probably the most nerve-wracking age, at least I went through as a parent.
Yeah.
From that, they're good on their feet, they're quick, and it only takes a second.
Right.
The first thing I would recommend, obviously, is if you have a home residential pool, obviously, insurance purposes, they're going to say it's got to be fenced in 4 sides. Some places don't. Obviously, make sure all your sliding glass doors or access to the pool are secured at all times, whether you're outside or not.
Right, I didn't even think about that.
So we have encountered in the past where couldn't find the child, and next thing you know, the sliding glass door was unlocked, and they didn't think, well, there's no way the kid was strong enough to open the sliding glass door, and a terrible thing happened. One of the biggest things that I cannot stress enough, and I'm not just going to refer this to drowning, but as a parent and as a professional, I feel that every parent should be CPR certified.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, was CPR, and how, and that'll probably play into the next thing I want to ask you about as well. I'm not CPR certified. I've done a little bit of it because my dad and my brother had some involvement with fire and rescue and all that kind of stuff, so I know some about it, but I'm not CPR certified either. So I would like, maybe we'll do a whole nother video maybe on CPR potentially. I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, we can discuss it.
Yeah.
But just for anyone that right now that like the light bulb went off to you watching this and like, I've got to get CPR certified, you can contact any of your local fire departments. You can contact the Red Cross. You can even get online and look at the American Heart Association and find out where they offer the classes.
Right.
I would say some places they don't charge you anything, all the way up to, it depends on which course you do take. It could run you $25, at the most $30 maybe.
Okay.
But we're talking about not just only as a parent and your kid. That's something that you...
I mean, it's a life-saving technique.
Exactly. And it's not that you're going to have to worry about walking down the street and do CPR every single day, but when it's needed, that's when you want it. You don't want to have it and
guys,
not have it.
It's like carrying a gun. You know what I mean? It's like a CWP. Like, you carry it in case,
right,
because you might need it. Knowing CPR to save a life is no different from carrying a gun to save a life.
Correct.
And that's I think a great way to put that.
Perfect. Ideally, yes. You don't want to have to use those skills in that training, but it's always good to have it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. I'm glad.
So backing up on that, I first and foremost be CPR certified. And in that, it kind of opens your eyes to other things. It might help you calm those overwhelming, hovering parent mode as well. Another thing with pools, remove all of the toys and the objects from the deck and floating in the water. I've noticed numerous times, even taking my kids to the neighborhood pool, they've got, you've got a public pool,
floats and noodles
and everything with that, and you've got, even if you have a middle-aged kid that is not that strong of a swimmer that's in there, yeah, my kid's swimming, you're sitting here having a conversation, and next thing you know, this float is over top of him.
Nobody knows.
No one knows. None of that there.
You can't do a visual scan of the pool and see.
Exactly. It's all those little things that we all, as parents and adults, sometimes take for granted. You know, we're not really thinking about, well, we got here and yeah, I noticed that float sitting over there in the corner of the pool. No one's been using it. It's been there, you know, who knows how long.
Right.
And next thing you know, it's like, wait a minute, where's my kid?
Right.
You know, and it can be the littlest thing like that. Also, I recommend, you know, if you obviously put your kids in some type of swimming lessons.
Yeah.
Okay, and on the flip side of that, just because your kid has swimming lessons doesn't make him a perfect swimmer.
Right. Ain't no Michael Phelps.
Right. No. It's just like anything else. The more you do it, the better you become at it. The more comfortable they become in the water. But yes, get your kid swimming lessons. Remove all the objects around the pool. At home, make sure that in the earlier stages, don't take your eyes off of them. You don't want to be that hovering parent, but you have to find that happy medium where you can sit back to a point and relax and enjoy the time there, but still have an eye on that child to make sure, because it doesn't take long at all.
This goes back to my Disney World leash theory, where you're like, it's like, maybe I'm maybe thinking about putting my kid on a leash at the pool now.
And you don't want them to be afraid of the water by being that hovering parent over them, but they also have to
They need to
understand,
respect it.
Exactly. They need to respect the water and what the water can do to them with them not being, you know, a strong swimmer or
And
avid
being
swimmer.
careful around it and
Right.
running next to the pool, slipping, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And then I'll kind of touch base because like we deal with it in this area with living on the coast, the ocean. Okay? And obviously as parents with younger toddlers, etc., we don't just let them
Go out into the ocean.
go out in the ocean. All right, we're dealing with a whole lot of different things when it comes to the ocean with rip currents and undercurrents and side currents, etc. The older kids, you know, I have a 13-year-old, I still get nervous at the beach because I know
The power.
the power of that and what can happen so quickly. And I always do the buddy system. Okay, like, you know, if you've got a middle-aged kid that's a good swimmer, he's not going out there by himself. So if that means mom or dad, you got to get up off the sand and go out with them, then you go out with them. Or a friend that's equal age or older, etc. Same swimming capabilities. And the same thing, just because they're out there and they have that buddy system doesn't give you the pass card on paying attention.
Right.
Always keep an eye on them where they are because the currents in the ocean move so quickly. Before you know it, if the current's moving strong, I've literally gone 500-800 yards down the beach and didn't even realize it.
I did it too. I mean, growing up here, you know, it's like, oh, mom and dad are at the beach. You know, they're up there sitting doing whatever, and then I'm playing with my brother and my friends at the beach, and like you look up, all of a sudden you're like, wait, where are my parents at? Wait, and then you realize they're way over there.
Yeah. You know, and as a parent, you're thinking, oh, all right, you know, and I've been guilty of it. Hanging out, conversating with a group of people, and we've got the little ones here, you know, playing in the sand, and then the middle-aged or older ones, you're like, wait a minute, they were just there.
Yeah.
And then that panic mode hits, you know, and in our
And now
area,
you're scanning everywhere.
right,
looking
you're
for your
scanning
kid.
everywhere, you got 30, 40 kids the same height, size, etc., and you're like, all right, well,
Where's mine?
so that's another aspect of it. But yes, the drowning aspect of it, especially from a first responder standpoint, the biggest tip I can give you is to become CPR certified and stay on your toes. Always, always, always keep an eye on that child.
Right. Keeping your head on a swivel. Excellent. So the next thing I want to ask you about kind of relates to that, and that is choking hazards. In terms of if you choke on food, if kids choke on a toy, you know, all those kinds of things, right? Like Kendall, my youngest one, who's almost 4 now, and thankfully he's past that stage. But like, are you familiar with you guys? I know that some of you guys are. Your kid's a little older. Shopkins.
No.
You guys, I wish I had one down here. There's like 4,000 of them upstairs. They're like these little tiny rubber toys that are like the shape of foods, right? It could be a cupcake or a burger or a whatever it is, and they're like the size of a micro machine. Like they're tiny, right? And they're marketed to like 2 and 3 year olds.
Smart.
It's like brilliant.
Right.
But Kendall was always sticking them in her mouth, and like it's a toy, it's this big. I'm like, she's gonna choke on that. You know what I mean? Anyways, so there's choking hazards, things like that, whether it's toys, food, and I'm sure the first thing you're gonna say is CPR certified.
Again,
Right.
yes.
So beyond that, what are the best ways to deal with that? Obviously, there's ways to prevent that. How, as a first responder, do you look at that?
Okay, to break it down for the average person that the mom or dad out there that has to deal with obviously the small objects or the food with the kids choking and whatnot. Choking is there's something stuck in your airway, and a child's airway is very small. Okay, so with that being said, when you get CPR certified, they're also going to teach you the Heimlich maneuver. On a smaller, very small infant style, you don't do the Heimlich maneuver to it because you can't do it properly.
Right. You could probably do more damage.
Exactly. And if you don't do the Heimlich maneuver to an adolescent or even an adult properly, you can cause damage. At the end of the day, the civilian side of that is trying to help someone that's choking. I think that person that's choking is not really going to care if they're going to get any more damage. They just want to breathe.
Right.
And I think we've all have choked at some point. And if you haven't, it's a feeling that you'll never forget.
Oh yeah.
And the problem with that is with the kids, everything from very young, as soon as they get their motor skills, the first thing they do, they use their hands and everything goes to the mouth. They don't really understand or know any better.
Which, by the way, is how they get sick a lot of times. So
Yes.
so I was talking to a doctor. I just want to touch on this, and I don't mean to go derail this, but he said we were talking about kids teething and why they always get sick when they're teething. He says it's not because they're teething; they're teething and they want to put everything in their mouth to soothe their teething, and they get sick off of the things they're putting in their mouth, not because they're getting something going on with the teething itself. It's because they keep sticking everything in their mouth.
All the germs.
Yeah. Interesting little
Yeah.
fun fact. Anyways.
The biggest thing with that is obviously you'll learn all this through a CPR class, but I'm going to give you some high points. Obviously, if your child's choking, some of the main signs that you know they're choking, obviously, if they can't talk, if they have that universal deer in the headlights look at you, they can't talk. Their color starting to change.
They're trying to cough a little bit, but
they try to get it out on their own. That's your natural body instinct, is to get that out. On top of that, you want to make sure that you're there to assist them. A lot of people, depending on what it is, they're like, well, drink some water. I can remember my mom when I choked a little bit, drink some water as a kid. If you're at that stage of choking, yes, you might be able to wash it down, but at the same token, if you're at that point where they're coughing so hard, the body's trying to remove
it. Yeah.
It's trying to get it out. And then again, if you get trained in the Heimlich maneuver behind them, smaller kids, you give a back thrust in between your collarbone area in the back to kind of help force that out. You can look in their mouth to see if you can actually see something. Don't ever stick your fingers in their mouth unless you actually can grab a hold of it.
Right.
Okay. If you can't see it and you stick your fingers in your mouth, you're going to end up pushing or lodging that even worse than it already is.
Right.
So with that, some of the biggest tips that you can do, and I know I've been guilty of it myself with mine, as they get a little bit older, you're not so as cautious of how and what they're eating, especially at like dinner time or lunchtime. Make sure everything is in small bites.
Small or soft enough to like mash up with your fingers.
Correct. The smaller the smaller the bite size, the easier it is for them to actually chew
it.
And you want to encourage them to chew.
Right.
And that leads into things that they'll learn for the rest of their life going forward is, you want to be able to chew that food up, not only to swallow so you don't choke, so that it does go through your whole...
You can digest it
properly and etc. So you're not just scarfing it down.
Right. And I think having soft foods that you can mash up, I think goes to like when your kid's a toddler and they're getting out of the baby food stage and they're getting into hard foods and real foods, that one, obviously it's very, very small bites because they're like 12 months old, and maybe they're just starting to eat solid foods, but it's soft enough at that age that you can mash it with your fingers, so it's not likely to get lodged. It's not hard.
Correct. And we're talking about, I think, more of the choking stages start when they reach that, probably like anywhere between the 24-month and up, when they've got those motor skills and you got them in the high chair or whatever, and you fix them something and you're doing one other thing and
you're
still
doing
watching
some dishes
them.
and they're eating.
And they're, whatever it is with they're eating
Be a
with their
hot
hands.
dog.
Exactly. And one of my big things is all kids love hot dogs when they're kids, right? I did. My kids like them. At that early stage, if you're going to give your kid a hot dog, when you cook that hot dog, there is that outer coating of that hot dog. Get that wrapping off, and I hate to say it as like a wrapper on the hot dog that you consume, but that's what it is. That is a very big choke hazard, because it's
kind of like a rubbery.
It's a rubbery, stretchy type substance, and someone young like that can't chew that up good enough to get it down.
Right, it creates a friction going down your throat, and it's hard to.
And we cut them up into small pieces, but when you start cutting that hot dog up, you're going to see the inside of that hot dog actually start to pull itself away from that. So if you can pull it off so you don't just cut the hot dog up and leave it there on the tray, and then next thing you know, they're over there coughing.
Choking, yeah.
Another big thing that a lot of people don't realize is like oranges. If you take a whole orange and you peel that orange back and then you pull the orange slices off and you cut those into little pieces for them, that outer coating of that orange, and the only reason why I know this is because I can never forget when I was a kid, probably 9 or 10 years old, on the soccer field, and I had orange slices and I was consuming them, and next thing you know, I was literally choking, and all of the outer film of that orange.
You don't have the white film?
No, like the white film, but not. You peel the orange, and when you have the orange and you break it open, and you know how you can peel like little slices of it off, that outer shell of that orange on that slice.
Got it.
If you don't chew that up very good, it will get lodged. And I'm speaking from experience. It will get lodged, and it's not fun. So that was always been one of my things. I opted out of I get them mandarin oranges, which is, there's really no coating. They're mush. You can,
right.
You can probably.
You're like, that was your solution?
Yeah.
I choked on spaghetti. I took a big old fork of spaghetti when I was a kid, and I just couldn't chew it well, or I don't know, and I tried to swallow like a big thing of spaghetti, and it was like, I threw up all over the table, which caused my brothers to throw up, and then my mom was like, oh my god, I got 3 kids throwing up all over the kitchen. And
With spaghetti.
The spaghetti, it was a mess. And so now, even to this day, I cut my spaghetti up.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I'm not like slurping up noodles, and I do it for my kids too. I'm like, I cut it up. My Brandy's like, well, why are you cutting? Like, guys, they'll choke on it, okay?
Yeah, but and with that, again, like I don't want it to be like resort back to CPR, but again, with drowning and choking, the number one thing you can do, I mean, obviously if they're choking bad enough where you can't help dislodge that through the Heimlich, or if they're smaller, back thrust, and it's lodged there, and obviously they stop breathing, they go unconscious. Obviously, number one in either situation, call 911. Yeah, before anything, call 911, because we would
have someone else call 911.
Yeah, have someone call 911. If you've never called 911, it's going to feel like an eternity for them to get there, and especially when it's you dealing with one of your children. But at the same token, the quicker they're notified, the quicker they can get on the way there to help you, and then while they're being notified, you're rendering the care that you can give them, that you know how to give them. And with that, like, you want to make sure that, in a choking situation, God forbid that it got to the point where they went unconscious and they weren't breathing, that's where your CPR technique's going to come in to help them. It's proven with drownings and chokings that proper CPR, once they reach that stage, proper CPR for survivability is the sooner you can start, the better for the outcome.
Right. Go ahead.
No, you're all right.
Well, I was just going to ask, at what point do you go from hitting them on the back to a Heimlich maneuver?
Okay, with that, it's going to be pretty much size dependent, but for the most part, the back thrust are going to be, those are all done on infants where you can actually put them on your arm,
Okay.
all right, face down, and that's where you do that, and then you would roll the infant back over to, check to make sure that it comes out. Now, you don't want to sit there and take, an 8-year-old and whack them across the back with that, but at the same token, a full-grown adult grabbing someone that's smaller like that to do the Heimlich maneuver, it's not going to take a whole lot of force on someone that size.
Right. Because doing the Heimlich, you're basically, you're just kind of compressing the lungs and
right. Yes, you're right under, your
sternum
sternum here, and you're up and in, which I don't want to try
Get
and
into
get into all that here. But with that, you're causing that force to push it back out, to come out the other way.
using your own air pressure, right?
It's compression all of that and pushing, trying to unlodge whatever it is to get it to come out. And at times, with not just choking, even with drowning, when you drown, your lungs fill up with fluid, water, whatever you're drowning in. When they get to that point where they're recovered and CPR is started, if they make that good turnaround to come back, they're going to vomit all that water out. And by doing that CPR is what helps push all that out as well. We don't want to get to that point, obviously. So my thing is and with Beeve, bringing me in here to do this, like these are the same things, not just because of my profession, but as a father that I think about all the time. I know you do. In a sense, you don't want to be the hover parent, but you also want to put all the tools that you can get in your back pocket in case the worst happened.
Yep.
And that's what I would recommend, obviously, to start off is, CPR. You can find a lot of information on the internet. Again, don't believe everything you read, except for at Tactile Baby Gear and First View Fit that you find on the internet. But other than that, I would highly recommend, if you're not CPR certified, that would be the first step as a parent. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, dude.
Hey,
Appreciate you
anytime.
stopping by to do that. You guys make sure you go follow him. Again, I'll put all the links below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Use the comments below for that. You can email me. You can send me messages. All of that kind of stuff. Please like this video if you got something out of it. Subscribe if you aren't already. We'll see you on the next one.
Here comes the ready or not. Here comes